This was such a fascinating conversation with Linda Roberts, and I'm so honored to have her on the podcast today. We talk about soul loss, soul retrieval, tapping into intuition, and the fascinating world of animal communication, and how our pets can truly teach us so much about ourselves and connect us with our higher wisdom. Linda Roberts is a Reiki Master Teacher and a contemporary shaman who enjoys helping both humans and animals feel balanced and energized in their lives. She was drawn to energy medicine 15 years ago to overcome her own health issues and the lingering digestive issues of her horse, Howie. Linda's treatments are calm and soothing, often helping clients to release worn-out emotional patterns via soul retrieval healing. This was such a great conversation, and you will truly take so much away in understanding how we are all connected to our higher self and how we can really use the root of our soul to heal so many aspects of ourselves. I'm so honored to have her here today. Welcome, Linda, to the podcast. I am so excited to have you here. And I know this is going to be such a great conversation because we had chatted before, and I'm just really looking forward to hearing what you have to share. But before we get started, do you mind just sharing how you got started and what you do and the people you help?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. Um, so I help people with spiritual things and with personal and emotional things, sometimes also physical ailments through Reiki and shamanism. And so healing things at a soul and spiritual level for them. And then I'm also an animal communicator. So I help people to better understand what their animals are thinking or feeling. And I'm an intuitive empath, so I feel things from the animals, and to be able to express it to the humans, they can understand, like, what level of heartburn is it, or headaches, or things that a lot of the veterinarians can't really find. That's what I do. So I like to bring answers to people's questions.
Yeah, I love that.
Thank you. I got started with my heart horse, Howie, who became ill.
Mhm.
And he became ill the first 2 years that I got him. And so people were like, no, just just get rid of him. And I'm like, I can't. I'm in love with this guy.
Mhm.
And I was having a lot of challenges in my life, and my mom had just passed away from cancer rather suddenly. So I started to meditate after my mom passed, and then I heard her voice, and I I kept getting intuitive messages from my spirit guides, and then I started to hear my heart horse, Howie, in my head. Even though he's 30 minutes away from me, I heard him in my head. And being an educated woman with 3 degrees, I'm like, yeah, right, prove it to me. I'm making this up, I'm just going through something. But I wrote everything down, and it all came true.
Wow. Oh my
So
God.
I had written proof that I was getting these accurate intuitive messages. So that helped me to learn how to heal things on the soul level for myself and everybody else that's interested in doing that, whether they're human or animal.
Mhm. It's so profound because I'm a huge believer in this, but like I think there's just so much more than we even know. Like we're just literally scratching the surface and things, and especially like medical field and everything. There's so much more that we can get into. So I love what you do, and I think it's fascinating. And I would love to hear what were you told, and then what ended up coming true with your horse and
Yeah.
everything around that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So the first thing I got was from my mom, actually. And it was about a month after she passed away. And I didn't know anything about meditation. Okay. I sat in my closet away from my 3 dogs and my 2 middle school kids, because my life was so busy and chaotic at the time. And I'm just like, who's there? I just want to escape my life. Just who's there? And I felt the energy of my mom. And I was raised in a religion, and my mom was too. And I was surprised that I felt her energy and her presence. And I'm like, yeah, it's because I'm grieving you. It's fairly recent. I'm still kind of raw. Yeah. And she said, no, it's me. I need to tell you something. And I go, what? And she said, you need to call your sister. And I go, okay, why? My sister and I only talk a couple times a year,
Mhm.
and she lives about 4 hours from me. And my mom showed me an image of my sister being upset emotionally, and she had pulled up some green and white things from her garden. Like it was this little movie playing. I think
Mhm.
it was coming through my third eye chakra. My sister's pulling up these green and white things outside, and that's all I got.
Hmm.
And so I'm like, okay, well, I wrote it down because, I don't want people to think I'm crazy. And so I called up my sister that evening and, hey, how are you doing? And she's like, oh, I'm upset. I went to the grave site and put flowers on mom's grave. And then we chatted some more. And I go, I understand. And and then she said, yeah. And then to top it off, I had to pull up all my green beans. They had this white fungus on them.
Oh my gosh.
So those are the green and white things that I saw. It's not always
Yeah.
crystal clear,
Mhm.
especially when we're first accessing our intuitive abilities.
Mhm.
And so I was like, oh my gosh, I think I connected to mom in
Yeah.
spirit.
Oh my gosh. It's
Yeah.
so amazing. And then like, so how long were you meditating before you started being able to connect with your mom?
I think it was like my second try.
Wow. Oh my God.
Yeah.
And had you
Yeah.
had that before? Like, had you had experiences
No,
in your life? So this was
no,
like
no.
totally
It
new.
was it was very new. I mean, every once in a while I would get like these glimpses of um I was like telling my husband at the time, we don't want to go that route because I see like all these flashing lights and everything. Like there's going to be an accident, and I hope it's not us. And he had forgotten that I because that was the message. And then we did the family event, and we were gone for like 6 hours. And then he drove home the way that I suggested not to, and there were the lights and the sirens, and we were delayed getting home. And so just every like maybe once a year I would get something like that. But I knew nothing about intuition, or I never practiced it or studied it or anything. um, but I was at a really low point in my life, and sometimes when we're really low, some beautiful things can happen.
Yeah. And for maybe someone who's listening who's like resonates with that, like that low point in their life, and they just feel like they need more guidance. They don't know where to turn. Maybe they've done all the things, but yet it still feels like it's not helping and it's not penetrating that level of maybe pain they're feeling. Where could someone start to tap into that level of themselves and higher spirit in that?
Yeah, I think explore. Like I said, I just sat in a dark room on the floor and just said, "Who's here? I need someone." Like I've always believed in God and in angels, and so I was hoping to connect with somebody there who could help me.
Mhm.
And then my spirit guides came forward, and so I saw them and spoke with them, all through telepathy, using my third eye chakra. And I think just tapping in, doing any sort of mindful practice can help you. You may get something right off the bat, you may not. It's okay. Everyone has their own pace and their own journey.
Yeah, and can for someone who doesn't know, like, could you explain the third eye chakra and maybe like what the experience is if they're trying to tune into those messages and how they can really differentiate? Is that my thoughts? Is that like spirit? What is that I'm
Yeah.
experiencing?
Yeah, definitely. So we have a chakra system, and it is a Sanskrit word meaning energy spinning wheel. To simplify it, so we have seven main ones. We've got like the crown chakra at the top of our head, the third eye in the middle of our forehead, the throat chakra, then the heart is in the center of the chest, solar plexus is at the diaphragm level, sacral is at the navel, and then the root chakra is like at our tailbone area. So those chakras help to keep us healthy and balanced emotionally and physically. So if you're going through grief, your heart chakra is probably closed, and it's probably not really vibrant in keeping things healthy. And I see a lot of people with grief, they're kind of hunched over, and like the weight of the world on their shoulders because they're in that protective mode, which makes sense. It can also correlate to upper back issues, though. So it's not only in the front of our bodies, but also in the back of our bodies that um, a closed or an imbalanced chakra can show up. And then for emotional things as well, um, if you're feeling closed off from the rest of the world, most likely your crown chakra is closed in your third eye. Third eye is where we usually get our intuitive messages. And I do teach all of this, so I have online classes and in-person classes as well. And being able to just tap into the messages that are coming in through the third eye chakra can help you with your intuition.
Yeah,
So
it's so fascinating. Like if someone was feeling like maybe they are closed off, like how do you start to begin to open that up to now allow the energy to move through you?
intention.
Mhm.
With your intention. We are divine beings. We are co-creating here on this planet just like everybody else. You have the power to do it. So think about it. Maybe do some breath work. Maybe focus your breath. Um, Close your eyes, focus your breath. Like think of it breathing. Think of your third eye breathing, like opening, closing, opening, closing. In intention, sound therapy as well. You can do singing bowls, gongs, drums. I love drums. Except I
Mhm.
got the one drum here. Um, just there are so many other things. There are essential oils, there are tones, there are mantras, many different options there to help you to open and rebalance your chakra system. And then, of course, there's Reiki and shamanism and theta healing and um, emotional code things, all
Mhm.
kinds of nice things.
Yeah, it's fascinating because sometimes you can feel like you're stuck in the same tools or same cycle of things, but to know that there are so many more options and whole nother realm to explore, especially beyond maybe what we're experiencing this physical realm is really fascinating and very hopeful, hopefully to many people who are listening. And I want to take it a different approach because I think it's so unique how you communicate with animals. And I would love to hear more about that because I think this could really resonate with my audience. And again, it's many, women who are just going, grinding, busy, like going all the time, don't ever have time to slow down. And what are some of maybe the messages you've heard from maybe animals about that pace or maybe about that typical lifestyle and maybe how they are experiencing it?
Yeah, absolutely. I've been doing this for 14 years professionally, so I've got thousands of stories and clients. Um, some of the things with the people and the families that are rushing, rushing, rushing around and hurrying and not doing any mindfulness or they're not doing any inner work. The animals are picking up on their anxiety.
Mhm.
So there's a couple of things that I see happening. Number one, the animal feels the anxious energy from the person, like the static electricity. When you touch something, you get that zap. So it's like that all the time. And so that causes anxiety for the animals in their lives. But also, sometimes people don't realize it, but their animals are acting like sponges and they're absorbing and drinking that anxiety out of the person's energy field and taking it into their own field, which isn't great because an animal, especially a smaller animal, if they're taking that on and they're not releasing it, it's going to build up and it's going to manifest into an illness,
Mhm.
a
Oh.
physical illness, not
Mhm.
only an emotional illness, but a physical illness over time. I've seen it happen, unfortunately. But being proactive and reminding your animal, I love you very much. Please don't absorb my stuff. I'm going to do whatever I can to manage it better. And then do something proactively to manage your stress levels better.
Mhm.
Be good to your word, to yourself, and to your animal because they're there for a reason. They're there to love and support you and teach you sometimes. And so,
Are there any early signs that someone could see in their animal to be an indicator that maybe that's what's going on, that's what the animal is experiencing before it progresses into something more serious?
yeah, a lot of times it'll show up as separation anxiety. Like
Mm.
they're glued to you and they get really upset if you lock them out of a room that you're in or you're leaving without them. A lot of times it shows up like that.
Interesting. And then as far as like healing and like with the animal, what are some things you can do with your animal or to cultivate more healing within yourself and have like a good relationship with the animal so that they're healing, but you're also healing too?
Yeah, so I again put a lot of tools in your tool belt. So find things that work for you. And there's like a menu of options. So there's all kinds of things you can do to relieve stress. There's meditation apps you can listen to. If you're into movement, you could do yoga, you could do Tai Chi, you could do breath work, you could sing, you can chant, you can journal, you could take a lovely soaking bath. Find find some ways to de-stress, and then remind your animal, look, I'm taking a bath because I'm going to de-stress. I'm going to release all of the stress from work or from my family situation, whatever it is, and I'm doing this for me, and I hope you support me with this.
Mhm. Yeah. And like going off things, I love that. And I love that recommendation, just having that like relationship. One thing too, and I've noticed, and I'm probably guilty of this, is that many people take such good care of their animals, but then often neglect themselves. And what are some messages that maybe animals have for their owners to communicate like it's okay to take care of yourself and not direct all your energies towards me?
Yeah, oh my gosh, time and time again, I see it all the time that people are feeding their animals better than they're feeding themselves. And it's like bragging rights. They're bragging about that. And I'm like, hold up.
Yeah.
If you're not good, your animal is going to have to go to a shelter or something. Because if you're not around or you don't have them in your will to go to someone else, is that really what you want?
Mhm.
So, yes, the animals really appreciate, self-care. They think the traditional like Western society is just crazy right now with all the stress and pressure and all of that. The things slowed down during the pandemic. A lot of animals were relieved that
Mhm.
they got their people and they
Mhm.
could bond and they could connect and they could just commune together, and that's what brings a lot of animals joy. Not everyone, but most.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. And it was like the pandemic obviously were horrible times, but then it was that pause, which I think really allowed us all to like disconnect from that pace and really connect with ourselves in a deeper level. And one thing I want to talk about is that as far as animals, I remember hearing it years ago. It's like dog is God backwards because that's how connected dogs are, to that like love and like unconditional love. And I know humans, we have, our spirit, soul side, and then we also have like the ego here. And do animals experience that? Do animals have ego where they maybe have some of these things in place, or is it truly just like a human experience?
um all animals have egos,
Mhm.
but I don't think their brains are as far developed as humans when it comes to that ego. Because I've worked with show dogs and cats, and they have big egos. If we're talking about, self-confidence and that, if that's how we're defining ego. But no, they are sentient beings, but they also understand the ways of the world.
Mhm.
A little bit about reincarnation here. I see animals reincarnating all the time into the same families that they have been in. So let's say one of my favorite childhood cats became my first adult dog.
Mhm.
Um, and he's willing to reincarnate back. But because of reincarnation, sometimes these dogs and cats and horses have been humans in other lifetimes. So they understand the human experience.
So
If
interesting.
if that's something that they've done. Not every animal has done that. But remember, if that happens, we have been animals before. And so we can better relate. I feel older souls can better relate to like the earth and the animals and most living things. And then the younger souls are just all about the, you know, doing things for themselves and the ego.
Mhm. Yep. And so can animals reincarnate in the same lifetime as a human? So like you could have a dog when you're growing up and then the dog can come back when you're like maybe an adult.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I see it all the time. And we're just getting a downpour of rain here, so I'm going to turn
Oh,
up my
I
sound.
say I could hear some thunder. Yeah, I figured that's what it was.
Yeah, yeah. Yes, yeah. So I was doing a reading, and the animal was saying, Tori, Tori, my, tell them I'm Tori. And I go, I don't know, that's your name is like Jasmine. I don't know what you're saying with Tori, but I, because I don't know the ins and outs of this family. I'm just going to write it down and I'm going to share it. And that's what I do. I don't judge what comes through. I just document it and then, give it to them. So I said that, and there was this huge silent pause, and I'm like, oh my gosh, did I say something wrong? Because it was a phone call we were doing.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh my God, that was our dog from 25 years ago.
Oh my gosh.
And I
Wow.
and I had no idea.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh my gosh, the qualities, they're very similar. No wonder this dog was so easy to train. They get us. They've been
Yeah.
with us before.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
So then did they become like how then it's like how does the pairing happen? They just find like that's like it's amazing.
The
Like
universe, the
yeah,
universe. I tell
amazing.
you, so many times I've had so many clients over the last few years who have lost their dogs due
Mhm,
to dogs and cats due to death,
mhm.
just normal death. And they are finding them again. So I said, the universe conspired to bring you two together one time, this life. I'm sure it will happen again if that's really what's important in your heart.
Yeah.
And I do see it unfolding, which is a beautiful, beautiful thing.
It's so fascinating to me because I had a dog, golden retriever growing up, and like I was very connected to her, lost her when I was in high school. And then I ended up getting my own dog, like maybe probably 10 years later. And I'm like, they just reminded me so much of each other, like so much. And like it's so fascinating you say that because I always like felt like, is that Jamie coming back as Shiloh? Like it's,
Yes.
yeah, amazing. So I think that's fascinating. It's also very comforting too, because like for me, I'm very attached to my animals, and it's like to think of maybe that they'll come back and visit me again. Like that makes me very comforted. I'm sure people listening feel that too. It's like that bond is there forever.
Yes.
So I
It
love
is.
that. I
Yes.
love it. One thing I want to get into, because I know this is something that you talk about, is soul loss versus soul retrieval. Do you mind talking about what is that, and then how do we see that and experience that?
Yeah. Yeah. So, as a professional shaman, I've learned that we can go through life and experience hardships. It can be simply cutting your finger by, cutting an apple, or falling down and bumping your knee, or loss, grief, loss, divorce, any sort of car accident, any sort of physical injury. What happens is your soul says, "Oh my gosh, this is too intense. I can't be here," and it flies off. Just a
Mhm.
part of your soul. It fragments. So it's like a soul fragment that goes off into the spirit world and sits and waits until you pass away, and then you reconnect with all those soul parts. But in the meantime, what happens is those fragments, just think, how many times have you fallen down or hurt yourself or had death or loss in your lifetime? You know, it happens a lot. So there's lots of fragments out there waiting for you. And what that does then is it makes you a little bit, what I'd hate to say weaker, but less intense. You're not at your full capacity, right? Because those parts are not there helping you with this life, with this experience. So that's soul loss. Soul retrieval is, as a shaman, I go into the spirit world and I talk with those soul parts and I bring them back in. Now, I only bring back a few at a time because I don't want to overload your system if you've had a lot of trauma or injury, or things like that. So I bring them back, and then they slowly integrate into who you are now. So one of my most profound cases that I first had was a client who is in Cairo, Egypt. She did a phone session with me for the soul retrieval, and I was talking with her, and I said, well, the soul part that came back the loudest and the strongest was like a 1-year-old version of you. You weren't quite walking. And she had like this really severe head trauma, like her head hit the hard concrete. Like I saw concrete hitting the head of this infant, and she's like, "Oh, that's crazy. I didn't hit my head. My mom's alive. I'm gonna ask her." So she called up her mom, and she called me back, and she's like, "Oh my God, I was dropped on my head.
Oh
They
my
never
God.
told me."
Wow.
They never told me she was being transported like into a cab on the city street, and she, I don't know, top heavy, I don't know, but something happened and she fell and she hit her head on the hard pavement. And that was enough for her soul to say, "I'm out of here." And this woman was struggling with so many things in her life, her career, her self confidence, her self worth, the relationship that she was in. That soul part came back, boom. She started her own business. She left the jerk that she was with, and she got much more confident in her life.
Wow.
And it was just like within 6 months of that healing, just boom, all those things shifted gradually over that 6-month period.
Wow, it's fascinating. And so why would why would part of our soul leave? Because it's overwhelmed by what's going on here? That's what you're saying? Okay.
Yeah, Earth
Okay.
is the most challenging
Yeah.
experience we can have as souls, I believe. It's
Mhm.
it's like the densest, it's the lowest, it's the heaviest.
Mhm. And is there a way, so like navigating through this life, like if you're inevitably some things are going to happen and like we can't control the external circumstances, is there a way we can approach them or experience them in a way that we're less likely to lose part of our soul or have some soul loss?
Yeah, I think doing some of the mindfulness and the inner work, connecting with yourself more is going to help you to retain those soul parts. It's not going to guarantee it. I mean, I still have soul loss, even though, I'm been doing this for like 14 years. And I go and I bring those parts back when
Mhm.
I'm ready to
Yeah.
do that. But I think doing mindful practices is going to help. Tapping in, tap into your inner child, your inner spirit, your inner soul, um, and just listen to them and try to connect and live a life that is more soul centered.
Yeah, it's a beautiful message because I think so many of us get stuck in the day-to-day grind, and it is so easy to like watch the weeks go by, the months go by, the years go by, the decades go by, and you're like haven't even connected with yourself. Like I know I've done that. And I think it's almost so normalized now, that like it's like being busy is praised, and it's really a shame because it is like in those quiet moments that you grow the most. And I've experienced that in my life. So I appreciate you sharing that and really encouraging that because that is such a beautiful way to live life rather than just kind of being bounced around by whatever is demanding of you. And do you mind sharing more stories that you have of like, because I think stories really, I mean, they resonate with me and I think they really hit you at the core of like understanding how powerful this is. Do you mind just sharing a few more stories of people who you've worked with who maybe have had some of that soul loss and have retrieved it and their life has changed?
Oh, absolutely. There was this one with some abandonment going on. So she she was having panic attacks when her husband was leaving, and he traveled internationally. Even though she had children in upstairs in their beds and a dog, for some reason at night, she just something would strike her. And she contacted me actually because her dog was having these panic attacks at night. So I talked to the dog, and the dog was like literally pointing its paw at her, saying, It's her I feel."
Mhm.
And so then I invited her to tell me about her experience in the evening, what was going on, and she, disclosed to me, "Oh my gosh, I've got like this like anxiety attack and this panic, and it comes out of nowhere." So I'm like, well, let's work on it. So we did a healing, and a month later, after the healing, she said, it's gone. She's like, I keep waiting, I keep testing it and waiting for it to hit, and it is gone. So we brought back the soul parts that were going to help her to heal from that abandonment.
Hmm. It's amazing. I love that. And like, it's just, I mean, it's fascinating because it's like when you're going through that, sometimes you can feel so hopeless, especially experiencing panic attacks. I mean, I've experienced those that, and it's just, it consumes you so to have the quality of life back, especially at night and not go through that, that's so profound.
Yeah.
Do you have any other stories? I love stories. I would love to hear any other like
Oh,
things
yeah.
of things people have experienced through this.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So a married couple came to me for healing. They had lost an infant. The infant was only I think she was 6 months old.
Mm.
And this was their third child. So they were experienced parents, but I think she died of SIDS.
Mm.
Um, so it was very unexpected and very heart-wrenching for them. And so I was able to they were just they wanted to be present for their two older kids, but there was just this weight on both of them. They felt horrified. So I actually did healings on both of them, and they were then just feeling much more confident and glowing, and then felt more confident to go through an adoption agency. The woman didn't want to go through birth again, so they ended up adopting a wonderful daughter.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. Like I have goosebumps because it's like when, through that, now you've given this child a whole new experience of life. Like that's amazing. Like
Yeah, we're
just
all
the ripple
connected.
effect of it.
Yeah,
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 it's
yeah, yeah,
amazing.
definitely. Yeah. Yeah, and then the animals, I've helped animals with soul retrieval, all of the ones who have been abandoned or
Mm.
um, are living on the streets and things like that, or any animal that's been in a rescue situation, dog or cat or horse, they most likely have soul loss, and so helping them to heal is another beautiful thing that I love doing.
I love that. I have a rescue and I've had her for 11 years and she was a mess when I got her. Like angry dog. I've never had her as my first rescue, very angry, like and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, how am I going to keep this dog?" Because she was being really nasty to the other dogs, but like it's just giving her that love. And I wish I had known you back then. I would have asked for your help, but she's just been one of the best dogs like ever since. But it's amazing to see that. And I could totally understand that because I know she had been through some things prior to me getting her. And it's just like that help for especially animals. I have such a soft spot for animals. So I love what you do. And I think that's so fascinating. And for someone who maybe is like starting like today, wanted to do something today, where could they start as far as like, maybe they have gone through a really, really tough time, something really challenging, and they just feel like they are grasping at straws, trying to do all the things and nothing is really hitting. What could they do today to help themselves move a little bit more forward?
Yeah, I think um, if they're not doing anything mindful, I think they need to start there just to tap in to see, what is going on with me? Why do I feel this way in this situation or when this happens? Or, find the trigger if you can, and then do some mindfulness around it, whether it's like I said, singing or chanting or mindful movement like yoga or tai chi or breath work or meditation or playing music, talking it out with a confidant, doing those types of things. And usually when people find me, it's when they've exhausted all of those things. Sometimes their therapists will direct them to me to help to shift their energy, because bringing back a soul part, it's a huge healing that really changes your energy, just from top to bottom. And yeah, so they could reach out to me if they needed additional help and support.
Amazing. How can they find you? Where can they connect with you?
Yeah. So you can go on my website to see all my offers in my courses. It is www.thewhispersoflove.com, and that's with the THE, whispersoflove.com.
Love that. And I'll put everything in the show notes. So if you're listening to this episode, definitely connect with Linda. And I'm so grateful for you being here today and just sharing everything that you shared today. And hopefully, and I know, I'm sure it inspired someone to pursue a deeper path of healing. So thank you.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate you.
Absolutely. And again, for anyone who's listening, if you found value in this, share it with someone. You never know how these messages could be, connect somebody to true healing, and how that ripple effect could literally start with you just sharing this. So again, thank you. And thank you for everyone who tuned in today. Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of Rewiring Health. I hope you found our conversation both enlightening and empowering. If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe to Rewiring Health so that you never miss an update. Also, I would love to hear your thoughts. If you could take a moment to rate and review the show, it would mean the world to me and help others discover the power that we all have within us to create change and create the life that we truly, truly desire. Thank you so much for spending your precious time with me and sharing the energy of the show.